Hey, welcome back to Hit That Line, Week 2. I'm your host, Zach Berry. Joining me, as always, Austin, Nick, and Ben will be here with us shortly as he is wrapping up some work with the day job. But we're here. We're going to talk football. We're going to talk Week 2. Gentlemen, good evening. How are we doing after the shellacking in Week 1 that we took?
Bit better.
You know I'm worried about our defense. I mean, giving up 7 points last week. Come on, gotta be better than that.
Would these constitute? There was some bad beats in this one. Austin, you had one for sure. I had one because Wisconsin just took their foot off the gas. My other two L's were I went against the grain in one of them. Went against what everyone else was saying, and I was like, hey, maybe this will be that one gambling thing where, like, all the sharps and all the money's on going this way, and I'm going to catch it. Nope. Texas Tech took an L up in Laramie, and then Clemson, big ol' egg. Austin, yeah, you had a tough one, didn't you?
Yeah, Chip Kelly wouldn't get his head out of his ass for most of that game. He's got a 5-star freshman who comes in and throws dimes, and then he insists on going back to Ethan Garbers for long stretches of that game, who promptly, throws interceptions as soon as he goes back in the game. So Kelly notoriously, and this may be relevant for this week, Kelly notoriously takes non-conference games like off, basically, doesn't seem to care about covering. In some years, it's actually come back to bite him. It almost did against South Alabama last year, but it definitely looked like a QB tryout against Coastal. If you're going to back the Bruins, you have to be confident he's going to play more, because if he plays Garbers, they're in trouble.
I mean, when you have the ability to put Ethan Garbers in the game, you just got to.
You got to do it.
One thing I will say that you do have to do, and that is to be sure to go check out homefieldapparel.com, the title sponsor of this year's show. Check out the Ole Miss collection. If you haven't done so already, go give it a look. Get you some merch for it's probably not going to be there in time for Tulane, but Georgia Tech, Alabama, the rest of the schedule coming up. You can have some nice merch, wear around the house, wear it to Oxford, whatever you want to do. But when you do it, your first order, TOC23 is the promo code. Use that for your first order and you get 15% off. I was a big fan of 3 items. I went ahead and snatched those up when the collection dropped a couple weeks ago. But you can still go on their website and get you some home field apparel. I love the tees. They're incredibly comfortable. Nick is a huge fan of the hoodies. I have one. I love it. It's extremely comfortable. A little bit of a nip in the air this evening here in Nashville. So hoodie season's right around the corner. And then they got a quarter zip. They've got tons of stuff. So TOC23 is the promo code. Get you some home field apparel. All right, so after week 0, week 1, whatever you want to call it, combined, we're out of the gate limping, 4-12 overall. But week 2 is here, and see, that's the great thing about this podcast here is we get another crack at it the next week. So let's look at week 2. Any national storylines that y'all are kind of thinking about heading into week 2 before we get into picks?
I mean, should we cover how wrong everybody was about Colorado except Nick, basically?
I was. Don't say that. Don't give him that. All right.
In hindsight, and I'm not in any way like talking about me, because I didn't really know this until like after the fact. But apparently they have the 36th, but like by composite, the 36th best roster in the country based on talent. And I mean, we should have seen like they probably weren't going to go like 2-10 or 3-9 with it. I think there's a little bit of like TCU is going to be kind of mediocre there too.
Yes.
I don't think Colorado's going 10-2, but I definitely think they're going to go bowling at this point.
I was dead wrong. I was wrong about Clemson and I was wrong about Colorado. A lot of people were, but I was very wrong. I did not think they would. I legitimately did not think they would score that many points. I didn't think they'd win. I'm incredibly shocked people over in Funky Town, which I don't know why they call Fort Worth Funky Town, have to be like scratching their head because my goodness, they looked bad. And I mean, Kendall Briles, I know they put up a ton of points, but Sonny Dykes has got to figure something out because giving up 45 and over 500 yards passing, with all due respect to Shedeur Sanders, I mean, that dude was in the SWAC last year, and he just swacked you with 510 yards passing, and that's embarrassing.
Yeah. Look, I think Nick is absolutely right. Two things can be true at once. Colorado was vastly, vastly underrated. I think, I think it's safe to say at this point, we were all dead ass wrong. Again, that doesn't mean they're going undefeated. They may not even bowl. That remains to be seen. But they're much better than most of us thought. Shedeur Sanders actually might be okay. But TCU could also be cheeks. They looked really bad. And Briles, my God, he got out. Sean Lewis on the other side of the ball, offensive coordinator for Colorado, looked like a genius compared to Briles in this game. And Arkansas fans criticized Briles in the past for refusing to run the ball and instead insisting on getting in shootouts and throwing the ball over the yard when he didn't have to. And that's absolutely what happened against Colorado. TCU could have run the ball down Colorado's throat all day and played keep away. And he just refused to do it. He wanted to go back and forth. And they just couldn't. They wanted to stand in the middle of the ring and trade blows with Colorado, and it just didn't work out for them.
That's the key for me. And now again, I don't think they're going to win 8 or 9 games just because I do think when they get into the meat of that Pac-12 schedule, it's going to get ugly. But Sean Lewis as the offensive coordinator is huge.
Yep.
Because that's key. That dude was a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he is now the offensive coordinator calling plays for Deion Sanders, which Deion is not in charge of calling plays.
No, he's not in charge of anything. But I mean, look, he assembled the talent, he assembled the roster.
He's in charge of the hype machine.
Exactly. And look, it's working so far. So credit to him. I'm not, that wasn't meant to really detract from the job he's done so far. But don't lest anybody believed otherwise. Deion has nothing to do with game day X's and O's. He hired really good coordinators. He's got a really good staff, and turns out he's got a pretty good roster, much better roster than I thought he had.
The other national headline I feel like we got to get into, which we'll probably touch on a few more as we do our picks and talk about our analysis and stuff. My goodness, Clemson, it might be over.
Speaking of rosters, yeah.
I know that's hyperbolic, but my goodness. I mean, I was watching that game. I was, doing some work. I had it on as background noise, but I was paying attention, probably 60-40. And I just kind of kept waiting on Clemson to turn it on. I kept waiting on them to take control of the game. Duke beat their ass. I mean, Duke, full stop, just absolutely dominated the entire game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, look, Clemson did have some turnovers and some weird stuff with field goals, but you're right in that, like, there was no flukes from Duke. Like, they lined up and just out physical Clemson at the point of attack when they had to. Their defense was, was aggressive. They flew to the ball. The Clemson, I thought, would be far superior in the trenches, and that just was not the case at all. I think Dabo's refusal to hit the portal, refusal to play the transfer game, it's finally coming back to bite him. They just don't have dudes, man. There's no skill talent. I think you mentioned, Zach, there's a transfer to the SIP candidate on that roster. Outside of him,
that's like really it.
That's it. That's all they got. And look, Shipley at this point, Shipley looks like Ezekiel Elliott, like now. It's like he's got no tread left on the tire, man. He's like 40 years old suddenly.
I saw a thing. It was talking about kind of the type of player that Dabo's recruited there, and it's like he stopped recruiting players and fitting them into his culture and started recruiting only the type of players that would fit in his culture, if that makes sense. Like he stopped going after really good players and tried to bring them in and assimilate them into his program, and only started recruiting the players that would fit his program. And they're not the type. There's just not as many good enough players that fit that mold already, rather than, trying to get them and then change them and kind of mold them once they got there. He just wanted them already ready made for his program. And then there's There's not enough guys, and it shows out there. I mean, the whole refusal to do the portal. I hate the portal. I don't like this turnover. 50 guys every single year changing. I don't like it at all. But like, it's what we're doing now. So your choice is either be bad or hit the portal. So I mean, I guess that's what he's chosen.
Exactly. And to your point, that's a nice segue into the team in the ACC who absolutely committed to hitting the portal.
Yeah.
Florida State went out there and just trashed LSU. Florida State's got dudes, man. I know Ben's on the season long under, and I like that play. But Florida State looked elite against LSU. Now, again, it's a little bit like Colorado TCU. Two things can be true. FSU may be better than I thought they were, but I think LSU has got problems in critical spots up and down that roster. LSU hasn't had. When's the last time LSU has not had a running back or a guy in the secondary that was a dude?
Yeah,
do y'all remember?
John Emery's out. I couldn't, outside of the freshmen that I know from recruiting, I don't know who their running back is.
They don't have anybody back there, and they don't have anybody in the secondary either.
Yeah, in the secondary, yeah, I know one guy in the secondary, and I know he's suspended, and that's Denver Harris, who came over from A&M. But that's it. There is no Derek Stingley. There's no Maurice Claiborne. There's no Patrick Peterson. There's no Eric
Honey
Reed.
Badger. Yeah.
It's week one overreactions, but those are a couple games where I don't think there's any overreaction to how badly those teams lost. Clemson's got to do some soul searching, and I was literally telling somebody I guess it was Sunday after the Florida State game. And I was like, man, I might have been telling y'all, I was like, I can't wait for Clemson, Florida State, because that's going to be the game for the ACC this year. And then Monday night, I was like, nope, never mind. Because if that Clemson team shows up, FSU is dog walking them.
Not only that, if that Clemson team, rather, if that's who they are the rest of the year, dude, they may lose to North Carolina. They may lose to Miami. Yep. There are more losses on their schedule outside of the FSU game.
All of a sudden, that Palmetto Bowl was looking awfully soft.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into picks, or at least the schedule, and then we'll get into picks as we go along, and then we'll fill out the sheet here. But before we do that, I do want to remind you, podcast is also brought to you by College Corner, 825 Sisk Avenue, Suite 105 in Oxford, Mississippi. Go check them out. They have got collegiate apparel for pretty much everything you could ask for with Ole Miss. Men's, women's, kids. They got sale items. Go in there, check it out. They got tailgate supplies. They got gifts. They got gear. Got home decor, drinkware, stuff for your car. All of that and more at College Corner. If you need to grab you a quick game day polo before you head to New Orleans, that's the spot you need to go to. They got Columbia. They got Cutter and Buck. They've got all different kinds of brands. They got T-shirts. They've got Ole Miss National Championship swag from the baseball team winning the title. So if you still need to, you can never have too much national championship merch. Go over there and grab you a polo. Horn Legend is another brand that is out there that is new that I've never heard of it until now, but it looks pretty sharp on the website. I personally am a fan of the Cutter and Buck. The fit is very nice. It is to my liking. I think it fits. It's a nice soft shirt, very comfortable. And then if you want to pay homage to the late great Jimmy Buffett, they've got some Hawaiian shirts as well. So that is College Corner, now in Oxford, Mississippi on Sisk. Go check them out. Tell Scott and the folks that the boys from Hit That Line sent you. All right. Week 2, the big one obviously is in Tuscaloosa, Texas, Alabama. Saturday night. I believe that game is at 6 o'clock. Top 15 matchup here. I've gone back and forth on this one. The line is still at 7 if I am reading this correctly. This just kind of feels like a Nick Saban special where they just kind of lean on them for a little bit and win by 13 points or so. Texas is kind of in that same category as Texas A&M with me. Like, they got to prove it. Sark has shown signs of life, and then they lose something stupid, like Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies do. So I know last year everybody says, well, if Quinn Ewers hadn't gotten hurt, they'd probably beat Alabama. Bryce Young happened quite a bit in that game as well. I don't know. This just feels like a game that Nick Saban and Alabama win, especially in Tuscaloosa at night. I mean, that's not a terribly loud environment, but I just think that Alabama's going to be ready. I mean, they've been preparing for this game for a year now, so I'm going to lay the points and go with Alabama. I don't think it's a blowout, but I think the Tide win.
I don't think that this line. I mean, what is it at right now? Is it up to 7?
ESPN has it at 7. Let me pull up Vegas Insider to see if there's anything.
So
else.
you're telling me essentially if this game was in Texas, it's a pick 'em, and
Probably.
it just doesn't seem right to me. Alabama has, according to metrics, the most talented team ever assembled in college football based on stars. Obviously, we're not basing it on stars. Once you get on campus, you got to show who you are. And there's been more talented teams. They don't have the guys at receiver. I don't think that they've had in years past. But point is that they are supremely talented. I don't know why this Texas team would be a pick 'em on, at Texas. I just don't think they're that good. If I'm only taking 7 points with Alabama, a superior coaching staff, I think. Quarterback is probably the one position I'd feel confident saying Texas is better than Alabama at. But I mean, I don't think Jalen Miller is like awful by any stretch. But after that, Alabama's probably better at every position. I mean, unless I'm just missing something. Maybe wide receiver. I definitely think that Alabama's got the better running backs. They're better up front. They're going to be better defensively. 7 points at Alabama. This is, to me, I'm thinking Crimson Tide by like 13 plus.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I don't know. 13 doesn't feel like a blowout to me. It's just, they're going to win by a couple scores.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that's what happened. I think I lean more Zach's way though, where Alabama wins, but I don't know if they cover 7 in the hook or 7. You're right, Nick, about the more talented roster top to bottom. It's absolutely Alabama, but I would say the positions that matter, the positions that they come with the premium price tag. Texas, I think, is better. Quarterback, I think that's easy, open and shut case for Texas. Wide receiver, I think, is pretty clearly Texas too. And I would just note that Saturday, Alabama may have backups going in the secondary. I think their starting corners got hurt against Middle. I think one of those guys may go, and one is definitely not going to play. The transfer from UAB, I think, is the one that has been ruled out, which tells me if Saban even had to bring in a transfer from UAB, he may not have had the dudes back there that he wanted or needs if he was, planning on winning a championship this year. So I think Alabama can be had in the secondary, and I think Texas has the tools to do it at receiver and at quarterback. So I think Bama's going to come out with an old school Bama game plan where they play keep away and run the rock with Milroe and company at running back. Milroe is not great in the passing game, but he is dynamic in the run game. I'm not sure that Texas's front 7 can bottle him up enough, get enough stops to win the game, but I do think they can keep it close. I started to go under here, but I don't know. I think it could get loose maybe with an interception, short field. Who knows? And I think Texas can be explosive on offense, although they were not last week against Rice. Part of me thinks that they may have been looking ahead to this week. They probably prepped for Alabama more in the offseason than they did Rice. So I'm not going to judge them too harshly for last week's performance, but I don't know. It should be a really good game. It's going to be a crazy, crazy scene in Tuscaloosa. Texas probably should have gotten them last year. That doesn't mean they're going to do it this year, though. I think it's a whole, these are two different teams. I think Bama's going to take a completely different approach on offense. And rather than trying to trade score for score, I think they play keep away and grind it out. Old school Bama, and it's 28-24 Tide.
I just got to the party. I agree with Nick here. I think this is one of those Alabama games where they win by 2 to 3 scores and get back everybody's mind back right in turn, like in the way that they look at it, it's like, oh, we gotta get the media and the national pundits or whatever back right and saying that we're awesome and 7 points isn't enough points, and or we need to be laying 10 or 11 or 12 to Texas. So I like Alabama. Now I do agree that Mill this is not a typical Alabama quarterback, and so that's the one place where I'm held up, or that brings me pause, is that it doesn't feel like they're going to have any sort of, well, let's just say it this way. For like the last how many years, 10 or 15, Alabama's had a fringe Heisman contender at quarterback or winner. I mean, Tua, Hurts, Mac Jones. I mean, going all the way back to, I guess after the Greg McElroy years, they've been pretty solid there. Sans like the Blake Sims season, where they actually kind of was similar to Milroe, former running back. So, but I like Alabama here. I do. I like them. Like I said, 2 to 3 touchdowns. I was unimpressed with, and this is knee jerk reaction Ben time. I was just unimpressed with Texas against Rice, but Austin, you're probably right. They were probably just looking ahead to Alabama. They probably spent all off season preparing for Alabama. I mean,
I
let's
would
be real.
have. Yeah, I would have. I
Yeah.
assume Sark is
Think
competent
about
enough to do that.
the 2015 Ole Miss team. You had Fresno and UT Martin in the first 2 games. Now they blew them out, but everybody knew that the first game of the year was Game 3, and that was in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I feel like that's probably the way this one's going to go. I think it's relatively close game, and then Alabama just kind of leans on them and runs away with it. All right, 11 a.m. Semi big one here, but it's interesting. It's on ABC. The 10th ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish are taking on the NC State Wolfpack at Carter Finley Stadium. I hate this isn't a night game because that place low key gets pretty rowdy at night. Notre Dame giving 7.5 here. This will be a true test. You've got Brennan Armstrong, the former Virginia quarterback, is now with the Wolfpack, going up against Sam Hartman, who, my goodness, everybody drooled all over him after what he did to Navy, which cool. I know he's handsome. He's got a beard that looks really nice, and he's got really good hair. But this is where we'll find out a little something about Notre Dame. On the road, it is a day game, so not a true, in my opinion, not a true road test. But this one, I think, could get a little weird. I like Notre Dame to win, but this might be, kind of a possibly either a backdoor cover for the Irish, or maybe the NC State Wolfpack ruin it late with a score. But yeah, I think this one might be closer than the experts think type game, and Notre Dame kind of ekes out a win.
Yeah, so NC State did not look good in week 1 against UConn. They got pushed around in the trenches. The quarterback experiment did not go well with the Virginia transfer. Their defense
UConn
actually,
cash for me.
yeah,
Cash for me.
yeah, and look, NC State's defense was pushed around a little bit, so shockingly by UConn. And Notre Dame has looked like world beaters through 2 weeks. Hartman has been a giant improvement for them at quarterback. They're really tough in the trenches on both lines of scrimmage. They have a monster at running back. Having said all of that, y'all know how this goes. Like you cannot lay a touchdown or more on the road at NC State. You just can't. Not in this spot. I think they get up for the game. I don't know that they win outright, but there's absolutely no way I would lay points with Notre Dame when their first real road test against a team with a pulse. Dave Doran has made a career off of this. So despite what NC State looked like the weeks prior, I've got faith in them to keep it close somehow, some way. Again, I don't know if they pull it off outright. And Zach, like you said, if it was at night, I'd give them a lot better chance at getting the outright dub here. But I think NC State covers the number. It's going to be an ugly game, probably plays in the 20s, let's say 24-21 Irish.
I really want to lay the points and lock them, but y'all are talking me out of it. So I'm gonna hold off on this until the end of the show because I might circle back on this one. I think Notre Dame is really good. Like I think they are really, really good. Their running back is awesome, and this is not your typical. I say typical. That Notre Dame has been good for the past 10 years. We all like to make fun of them, but they win 10 or 11 games seemingly every year outside of what last year. And even last year when Notre Dame went 8 or 9, I can't remember. Either way, I like Notre Dame. I agree with you guys that this is a weird spot. And keep in mind, Vegas, they take into account. So and this goes to y'all's point, Notre Dame looking awesome the first 2 weeks and NC State not looking good you would expect this line to be more like 10, but it's 7.5. And that gets to be in the stinky number for me. And it just seems a little bit too good to be true. I agree with the 24-21 pick. If I were going with NC State covering, matter of fact, I was going to say 27-21 Notre Dame, but simply because y'all taught me out of locking it in. So, but I may circle back later and do it. I can't decide.
I should mention here too, Hartman has played against NC State, formerly at Wake, and I know his supporting cast at Wake were not nearly as talented as his supporting cast at Notre Dame, particularly on the lines of scrimmage. But Hartman is 1-2 in his career against NC State. So, familiarity is a two-way street. Now, maybe Hartman, has learned from his past experience against the Wolfpack, but I just have a feeling that Dave Doran and company, Dave Doran, however you pronounce it, and company are not exactly scared of Hartman. I think they faced him. They know what they're getting. They can scheme for him. I think it's going to come down to whose running game is better ultimately and who doesn't turn the ball over. I think Notre Dame's probably still better in the ground game. So I give them the win here, but I just think people are already selling NC State stock a little early, given how they played against UConn.
The College Corner is headed to Oxford. Stop by their new location in the Oxford Commons off Sisk Avenue. They'll have 4,000 square feet of Rebel gear ready for your trip to the Grove. On your next trip to Oxford, stop by the College Corner or our other great locations in Ridgeland and Flowood. Hats, shirts, polos, pullovers, sweats, t-shirts. College Corner has it all. And as always, you can visit us online at collegecornerstore.com. That's collegecornerstore.com. The College Corner, where your game day apparel meets.
Are you looking at cutting your health insurance premiums by as much as 20 to 30%? Are you aging into Medicare and need help finding a Medicare supplement plan? Call Drew Moak of USA Benefits Group at 601-953-8449. Drew is an Ole Miss grad located in Mississippi and licensed in 7 states. He works with the nation's second largest health insurance brokerage with access to 35 different carriers, and he can help you with any of your health insurance needs. From regular health plans to life insurance to dental and vision and even Medicare, he has it all covered. Now more than ever, it is critical to have a health insurance agent who is local and accessible. So call Drew Moak at 601-953-8449 and get your free quote today. This is a weird one. I don't feel like at least at this point, now they've played 2 games. So maybe that's something to put some emphasis on here. They played 2, NC State's only played 1. I don't know. I just don't, I don't view Notre Dame as like, oh, this is a shoe in on the road. Which I think is, I'm not some expert, but it's only 7.5. So, yeah, it could get a little silly.
Oh, well, let me ask y'all this. If Ole Miss played at NC State, what do you think the line would be?
Ooh, Ole Miss -3, 2.5.
Would we be favored on the road, you think?
I think so.
Yeah. That that Golden Domer helmet is helping out here. For sure.
No
Yeah.
question.
But
And like I said, look, Hartman's look
they are
good.
good. I mean,
Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah, I'm not saying Hartman's. Yeah, no one's saying he's not worthy of the attention, but I mean they've beaten up on Navy, and who'd they play last week?
Tennessee State.
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
okay,
I think Tennessee State. That's right.
yeah. So
Yeah, so they've not played anybody. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, and Navy
That's
may
the
be
old
real
Ole
bad.
Miss treatment, man. That's the they just beat Mercer. It's like, well, they look pretty good doing it.
Yeah.
But,
And they can only, they can only beat the team on their schedule. So I'm
That's
not,
right.
I
Right.
can't beat them up too much for that.
yeah.
all right, Nick's back. Nick, do you have any thoughts on this one? Maybe he's back. Maybe he's not. I'd imagine Nick is probably in the same camp as us.
Which game is this? Sorry, I joined a little late.
Notre
here.
Dame.
Notre Dame and NC State.
Oh yeah, wasn't this game played in a monsoon a few years ago? Or am I totally misremembering that? Probably like 5 years ago.
Yes.
That's all. Okay,
Yes.
I thought so, and I remember. I don't know if we said
And
if we
Brian
had the
Kelly
podcast
tried
at
to
the
throw
time.
the ball like the entire game.
Yes, and the over under started at like 43. I think it got down the morning of the game to 28, and I'm pretty sure, which is like insane. And I'm pretty sure the score was like 10-3. It was like the easiest. They could have put the over under at 12, and I probably still would have gone under. I mean, I would have lost, obviously, but it was a literal monsoon. It was an actual hurricane that they played through. So, no, I mean, this Notre Dame team, I think is pretty decent. So, what's the line? I haven't seen it.
It's 7.5
In Raleigh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still laying them. That's fine with me.
Okay.
Notre Dame's
Right.
talented enough.
Yeah, I think so. Also at 11 a.m. on ESPN, the 1-0 Utah Utes travel to Waco to take on the 0-1 Baylor Bears. Ooh, baby. This one I think could get ugly. Man, the shine has really, really come off Dave Aranda. And isn't Blake Shapen hurt? Is he done?
Yeah, he's hurt. I don't know if he's done for the year, but he's definitely not playing this weekend.
We dodged
Yeah.
the bullet with the Randa deal.
Whew,
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, we did.
Utah's given 8 here. I'm laying them. I might circle back on this one.
What's the over under on this game?
47.
Lock it up. I'm going ahead and taking the under. How is Baylor scoring in this game?
They're not.
I mean,
That's an excellent question.
I don't think that Utah is like going to score 40 something on their own. I mean, I don't think that they're so much better than Baylor that they'll just not stop scoring. I don't think that that's in Utah's offense's DNA to just be able to do that. So I don't expect them to score north of like 30, and I don't expect Baylor to score hardly at all. I mean, I don't think Florida is like a harbinger of what they're going to do all season, because Florida's offense is bad, but the Utah defense is good, like really very good. And I just don't. I mean, Baylor kind of had struggles against Texas State last week scoring at times. So
Yeah.
how are they scoring against Utah?
I'm gonna also lock in Utah minus 7.5. You can get that at DraftKings. Yeah, I'm locking this in. I just don't. Yeah, I think Utah's legit, regardless of who's at quarterback.
They're good every year. I don't know why we do this
Yeah.
every year where people are like, oh, well, I mean, the only people who thought, and, this isn't to like pick at anyone, but the people who thought that, Florida was just going to roll into Utah and win, Utah's a better program than Florida right now.
100%,
for sure,
absolutely.
I was trying to think, would there be a quote hangover after a big win? I don't know that that's necessarily. I mean, it's cool being an SEC team for them. I don't know that that's a big win for. They would consider that a big win anymore. And plus, it happened last Thursday. Utah got 10 days to prepare for this, or 9. Whereas Baylor's coming off a terrible loss where they kind of got whipped by Texas State.
And that's just not the nature of Utah's program either, man. Like, they're not going to get – Whittingham is not going to let those guys get sky high. That's just not – like, they expect to win
They're also all
games.
like 25.
Yeah,
because they've been on their mission.
But they expect to win games. Like they're not surprised that they beat the hell out of Florida. They knew they were going to beat the hell out of Florida, and they're going to go in and beat the hell out of Baylor this weekend. Rinse, repeat.
And further, they have Weber State next week. Why would they what are they looking ahead towards? I mean,
Yeah.
you beat Florida. If I'm them, maybe I'm looking ahead towards Oregon in what is that, week 5, September 29th. But I mean, I've got Weber State and UCLA and Baylor. I want to be 4-0 and ranked 7th in the country when we go on the road to Corvallis, because a couple weeks after that I've got USC and then Oregon. So now's the time to make hay. They're putting their head down and getting to it. This Baylor team, maybe they'll surprise me. I mean, maybe I think there is something to be said about overreacting from week 1, because Baylor's probably not as bad as they showed last week. But I think the Utah team is just they're just good at football.
No, I think
Oh,
Baylor
yeah.
could possibly cover the number if they had Shapen healthy. Now, I'm not saying they would win outright, but I'd feel much better about the number. I just don't see how they're competitive here. I think Utah can just boa constrict them for 4 quarters after scoring 10 points and just get out of there with a win.
Yeah. If I told you Utah won 24-11 again,
Yeah.
no one would be surprised.
Not at all.
Yeah.
31-3, 28-6. This is going to be a suffocation.
Yeah, this is as our buddy Michael Felder likes to say, they're gonna put the paws on them. I mean, that's what they do. They don't care who they're playing. They don't care if it's SEC, Pac-12, ACC. They're gonna line up and hit you in the mouth over and over and over and over. And yeah, like Ben said, people continue to sleep on them for some reason, and they continue to prove everyone wrong. And Kyle Whittingham's been there for 33 years at this point. I mean, he's been there forever. They have an identity and they stick to it.
Man, I wouldn't be any more confident if Ole Miss played a road game at the Horseshoe in Columbus, Ohio, or at Utah. I wouldn't be any more confident in either game.
Oh, I'd be more confident in the Horseshoe.
Me too. I think I would
Rice
too.
Eccles is a damn house of horrors for people. Speaking of an identity, one team has an identity for sure. The other still trying to find it. At 11 a.m. on Fox, Nebraska at Colorado, Folsom Field. This might be the rowdiest Folsom Field has been since Dead and Company was there this summer. It has not been this rowdy for a football game. It's sold out. It's going to be jam-packed. The weather is just going to be absolutely perfect. Yeah, Colorado has an identity. They're going to score a ton of points. They're going to have fun, and they're going to let you know that they're having fun, and they're going to talk shit. Nebraska, they don't really know who they are. They're still trying to figure it out. Really just gave one away against Minnesota. They controlled that game up until the last, 8 minutes. Jeff Sims had a bad pick, and then Minnesota ran away with it with just a couple circus catches to win. But, the Matt Rule era, not off to a great start. Deion Sanders era, just could not have written up. That was Hollywood stuff with how they won their first game. So the line is 3 to the Buffs. But isn't this setting up for it's not an upset, but a huge letdown spot for Colorado? Or is it just not going to matter and they're going to be able to out scheme Nebraska and get a big win at home?
So my thought here, I've got to see Colorado one more week before I decide what I think they really are, because I frankly did not. None of us expected what would have happened last Saturday. But to your point, Zach, was that an emotional high, like a adrenaline type carry you to win? Is TCU actually overrated, and we gave them too much credit for making the national title game the year before? Or is Shedeur Sanders the real deal? Frankly, I didn't think that he was, but
I didn't either.
he had 500 yards last week, so I'm gonna have to wait. This is another thing where they're gonna be like, man, Ben sounds like he's crazy tonight. I almost was going. Y'all know this earlier in the week. I sent that line to y'all. I said I may have to lock in Nebraska because I think before the season, what was this game like 9.5? Nebraska laying 9.5 or something. It was
I
a
think it was
pretty big
seven and a
number.
half. Yeah. It was
Seven
a
and a
10,
half.
it's a
Yeah, so
10
it's a
point move. Yeah.
10-point move. I mean, that's a lot of value swinging the other way. So I'm going to take Nebraska to cover, um, but I cannot pick it on who wins. That's just too much swing from week 1 or week 1 to 2. So or preseason to week 2. So give me the Cornhuskers. I think Matt Rule's a better coach than Dion is still, but even though he didn't pan out in the NFL, but that's too many points. Give me the Cornhuskers.
Okay. I
I'm
do
going.
think.
Go ahead, Zach.
Well, I was gonna say real quick. I think the under might be the play here because I mean Nebraska could not score last week, and we know Colorado can against TCU, and I imagine that they're gonna score quite a bit this week as well, barring something crazy, which something crazy happened last week. But I'll throw this out there because I saw this being talked about this week with all the snaps that Travis Hunter played last week. I think it was, what was it, 129
Yeah,
total?
just
Mm-hmm.
unsustainable. Yeah.
Is he, somebody said this, and look, you better figure it out because, spoiler, you play all your games there. Is he going to be able to do that at elevation? Because, he's from Georgia. Going to Fort Worth is something that he's used to with the humidity. Is he going to be able to play that much at elevation and be a difference maker the entire game?
It's a great question. I don't know that he could do it even if he weren't at elevation, but at elevation, it's even harder, obviously. That's unsustainable. He's not going to be able to play at that level. Maybe he plays, but he's not going to be effective on either side of the ball if he has to play that many snaps throughout the year. So maybe Dion plans on getting him some rest here and there. It's not every day that you play, a team that was in the national championship game last year. So maybe they were just making a point against TCU and we don't see him nearly as much against Nebraska. But I mean, he was incredible. And Ben, like we sort of ate our crow before you joined earlier in the podcast. Colorado's a lot better than we all thought they were. I mean, Nick was high on them, but I don't think Nick was even this high on them. And I think I'm going to go full heel turn here and go Colorado. And in fact, I'm going to lock in Colorado -3.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a 10-point swing,
It
and
sounds like a Kenny Trill type situation.
yeah. So hear me out. It's a 10-point swing. And the market is usually pretty efficient. Gambling markets are usually pretty efficient, but the markets have had a blind spot for teams with tons of transfers. Last year
Mm-hmm.
it happened arguably with Ole Miss, with LSU, with USC. All three of those teams went over their win total last year. All were heavy on transfers. I think you're seeing the same thing this year. I think teams that went heavy transfer portal, Texas State and Colorado, what did those two teams do in week 1? They came out and won outright as 20+ point dogs. Um, I think the market's got a blind spot there. Now, as we progress through the season, the numbers are going to catch up. And hell, maybe they catch up to me this week and I look like a fool when Nebraska wins outright. But I saw Colorado's skill talent. They're good, man. They're good at receiver. They're good at running back. If Shador plays like 70% as well as he did against TCU, they're going to win a lot of games this year. He's a much better quarterback than Jeff Sims. Colorado's just got more talent at skill positions than Nebraska does. And I do think Rule's a better coach than Dion. But as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, the coaches that are making the money at Colorado, that are actually implementing the game plan and developing the players, Sean Lewis. I think Nebraska's offensive coordinator was the dude who came from South Carolina. Is that right, Zach?
I believe so.
Yeah. So he's trash. Like Sean Lewis
Yeah.
is excellent, as you saw last week. Sean Lewis outdueled Bryles. I think he's going to do it again this week against Nebraska. I just don't see any way that Colorado loses their home opener after what they did last week, a packed stadium, all the hype in the offseason, after we saw that performance last week. home opener against a pretty mediocre, if not below average team in Nebraska. I've only got to lay 3. How often is it going to land on 1 or 2 in a Colorado win? I don't think it's going to very often. So let me lay the 3 with the Buffs.
Cannot add anything. Like you said, these small lines in college football games are basically just money lines to me. I mean, yeah, obviously that's not accurate. You'd lose money thinking that, but this is not the NFL where like a 27-25 game is like happens twice a week. This is not that. I mean, in 2 or 3 points in college football, games just don't happen. That's why I said earlier it wouldn't surprise me if Alabama beat Texas by 13 points and it still be like a close game. Like kind of, 5, 10, 12-point victories happen all the time. And Colorado is not losing to Nebraska after last week. This game means a lot to the fans. And I think Dion has kind of been playing that up. They've been talking about how they don't like Nebraska and stuff. He knows what gets Colorado fans going, and he knows what gets Nebraska fans going. And I don't necessarily think that Shedeur Sanders has any animosity towards Nebraska. I think he might play like it this week just based on what they want, what Dion wants kind of the program to be. I'm thinking Colorado is winning this game by at least 7.
Y'all are absolutely crazy.
So I also think I kind of think that like there is a cancer in the Nebraska program, and it is just like they can go in and operate and get new coaches, and it's just in there. And I don't know what it would take to get it out at this point. They just lose close games consistently.
That's their identity.
Yeah, it's gone through 3 coaches now. And I mean, obviously it's one game in the rule era. They may go 11-1, but it is what it is. And I'm starting to think that the players, many of whom are back from last year, are kind of thinking it now too. And once you start thinking that, it's game over.
Completely agree.
I was going to say that's contagious when, that's kind of creeping in the back of your mind every week is, all right, how are we going to lose this one?
And it's crazy to think like the Matt Rule's like established an identity in week 1 of his tenure. That like, oh no, he's doing this thing again. But like he really needs to snap out of it like really quickly. If they were to lose this game, like lead again in the fourth quarter and then like lose it 21-17, like I don't know that he could really recover from it in week 2.
Oh yeah, I mean, good Lord. All right. Sticking with the big games of week 2 theme. Let's go down to Miami Gardens, Hard Rock Stadium, 2:30 on ABC. Texas A&M travels to take on Miami. I still, the jury is still out for me on A&M. They looked pretty good offensively a week ago. Bobby Petrino calling plays. I don't think this is really going to matter this week. I just don't think Miami's very good. This game last year was just
brutal.
God, you wanted to claw your eyeballs out. If Jimbo will just stay the hell out of the way, I think A&M wins comfortably. I can't believe I'm even entertaining this idea. I might come back to this one, but A&M is giving 4. The over-under is 51. It's so weird because that number in past years, you'd be like, oh, under all day with Jimbo. But with Petrino, if he lets him cook, they could easily blow the doors off Miami, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Look, with Miami upgraded maybe as much as anybody in the offseason when it comes to coordinators, both offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. And I know it was just against Miami of Ohio, but they looked impressive in week 1. Now, A&M did too. And if Bobby can cook, as we said in the offseason, A&M is going to put up numbers. I think they put up numbers against this Miami defense. Miami's defensive line is pretty impressive, pretty strong. Not like the U of old, but certainly an improvement over recent years. I still think they can be had at the outside, though, on the outside and over the top. And I don't think Miami's skill positions are very good. Henry Parrish is still there at running back. They don't really have a receiver. This is not the Miami of old that, had 3 guys that were NFL players. They don't really have any dudes on the outside. And their quarterback, it turns out, is just not great. Like, I know he had an impressive freshman year, and everybody thought he was going to be a Heisman contender by the time he was an upperclassman. That just has not panned out. Having said that, I don't think it's a complete runaway here for A&M. I think Miami can hang around, even if they have to play a little keep away or try to. So I don't know. At 51, I've seen action on both sides of that throughout the week. When the number opened earlier this week, I was really interested because it opened at 46.5. That got immediately bet to 48.5. Now we're all the way up to 51. I'm kind of like you, Zach. I'm like, I don't know. Anything over 51 feels unlikely. Anything under 51 in years past, you would think was absolutely golden. But now with Petrino, who knows? Maybe A&M gets in the 30s. I think A&M probably comfortably covers. I'm just really interested to see what happens on that total. I think A&M wins by a touchdown. Let's call it 31-24.
Yeah, I don't.
What's the line here?
4.
4. Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
I was just gonna. I mean, I don't. I'm considering locking it in, so I'll decide on that after you go, Ben. But I just am afraid that Texas A&M is kind of finally showing up behind what their talent is, which is a top 5. I think by the composite talented team. I mean, obviously Jimbo's got to stay out of the way. And last year, this game was kind of where we saw. I don't even want to say cracks. I mean, they were just massive issues with the foundation of Texas A&M. I don't expect we'll see that again this year. I think this Texas A&M team is different, and they're a little worrying, obviously, because Ole Miss has already got a pretty tough schedule. We have a top 25 team on the road this weekend. We've got a whole bunch coming up with Georgia and Alabama. LSU still pretty decent. So the Texas A&M game is starting to kind of worry me. I think that they might be starting to kind of play as good as their talent. I think they're going to win this one going away.
So I don't know if this got hit on, but Miami ran the ball very successfully last week against Miami of Ohio. They had like 7 or 8 yards of carry. I don't think that that's necessarily enough here. Maybe Bobby Petrino was the missing link. I think this game is close though, but frankly, and y'all know this is going to be heard fall on deaf ears or whatever, but I'm not the biggest quote unquote. I guess I'm an SEC guy in the sense that I'm an Ole Miss guy, but I don't really necessarily cheer for conference affiliation unless I just despise the opponent that an SEC team is playing. With that said, the SEC needs a good showing here from A&M. South Carolina got roughed up pretty good by North Carolina last week, and LSU got roughed up really good by Florida State last week. And so, the SEC kind of needs, a bounce back here against the ACC, especially, given all just the landscape of college football. I think that's probably going to happen. Connor Wegman's a great player and no better coordinator to pick up than Bobby Petrino. I mean, that's a great. I mean, I guess there's a possibility that it gets weird early and Jimbo and Bobby start going out on the sideline or in the headset or whatever, and Jimbo takes over. That's the one chance you have at Miami covering here. Otherwise, probably I would say 6-7 point win for A&M. I think you get a couple of points here from over the spread. So close cover, but a cover.
This podcast is brought to you by Cherokee Valley Golf Course in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Get on over to see Cody Allen and the crew to take on the challenge of their wide, plush Zoysia fairways and large championship Bermuda greens. They have 2 putting greens to hone in your game with the flat stick, a driving range, and a chipping green to tighten up the short game. Book a tee time online at olivebranch.com or give them a call at 662-893-4444. That's Cherokee Valley Golf Course in Olive Branch, Mississippi. This podcast also comes to you thanks to Bluff City Advisory Group, Memphis's leading team of finance professionals who can provide advanced assistance with financial planning, pension, and qualified plan support, and business and estate planning strategies as well. Former Ole Miss Rebel and founding partner Ben Still, along with his elite-level customer service team, make it their goal to help you meet the ongoing demands of your financial needs. Learn about this and more at bluffcityadvisory.com. All right, let's get into the last big one of the day before we talk Ole Miss, Tulane, and get into the rest of our locks. 6:00 on Fox. Number 13 Oregon at Texas Tech. This is get right territory for the Red Raiders. Lost at Laramie last week in overtime. Oregon coming off a 81 points against Portland State. Good night. Oregon giving 6.5 here. It's at Lubbock. That's a place that gets rowdy at night. And I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, speaking out of turn, I feel like that fan base shows up regardless. They typically have good environments regardless of how good they are. That place will be rocking for this game, even though they lost last week on the road. This will be an early test for Bo Nix in Oregon. I like the Ducks here. I think that Texas Tech is a good football team going up to elevation last week. Dude, Wyoming is just a giant killer up there early in the year. I still think the Red Raiders can make some hay in the Big 12 and challenge Texas. But I like the Ducks here. If I were putting actual real American dollars on this game, I would lay the points. It's just a one-score line here. The over-under is 69. If you're looking at a total.
Nice.
That's so many points.
Yeah. I do like the Ducks. I'm very intrigued to see how McGuire and the Red Raiders respond, though.
Austin, tell me how this is not just a pleading for a sucker bet after what Texas Tech did last week. Like they lost, but they led
17-0
in that. Yeah, they led in that game. This to me is like they're begging people to take Oregon, and I kind of think Texas Tech's covering.
It does just stink so bad. So Texas Tech's up 17-0, gets their guts ripped out in overtime on a 2-point conversion play. Name a more difficult loss in week 1 for a program with expectations. So not counting TCU and Baylor, basically. Like Texas Tech, but for those 2 losses, Texas Tech's loss in week 1 would have been the worst of week 1. And now they come home to Oregon, who put 80 on the board. Is that right? Last week?
81.
81 on the board last week, and the number is 6. It's crazy. It stinks to high heaven.
It opened at 3.
Yeah, that's nuts. It's nuts. The other thing is I got a stale number on the total, so obviously I can't get that out as a lock, but I hit over 60.5 when it opened. I think that was
60.5.
Yeah, that was a bad number.
It's gone up 8 points.
Yeah. So I got some pretty good closing line value there. I would not endorse an over at this point, but I don't know. It's confusing as hell for me. Oregon's roster is better top to bottom, but look, we saw Texas Tech firsthand last year, and they lost some pieces off that roster, but they were physical as hell on defense. Their offensive coordinator is really good, and when he gets it rolling, he could be as good as anybody in the country. Now, they don't have the weapons that Oregon has. I think Oregon's got the better QB. But the number, I don't know what to do with this. It's a complete stay away from me because the number is screaming trap. I guess if you made me bet it and I'm getting under a touchdown, I guess I'm playing Oregon, but I would not feel comfortable about that at all.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's really not even a look at spot for Oregon. They're playing Hawaii next week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't have Colorado for 2 more weeks. I was going to say if they have Colorado next week, then it might be a little bit different. But, you know, I think this is a stinky line. It opened at 3. It's already gone up 3 points, but I've seen some predictors that said it should be 12 or 13. It's all over the place. This is degenerate type stuff here. I could not call it. I'd probably go under 69, but I would obviously go over what Austin got. I think this is 35-32 final, and you're sweating the entire time.
Yeah, I would stay away for sure. All right, one that we will not stay away from.
Also, some big time different weather between Eugene and
Gee,
oh my God. Yeah.
That
West
also
Texas,
plays
baby.
the Tech's favor. Yeah.
All right. the one that we are all here to discuss, 2:30 ESPN2 Ole Miss at Tulane. I'm not going to belabor the point here much. I think Ole Miss dominates. I think last week Tulane was very, very, very lucky and fortunate to have some field position opportunities. They flipped it on some turnovers, some turnover on downs. And it was a 7-point game late in the third quarter. South Alabama was hanging in there. I don't know if Michael Pratt's 100%. I think the Ole Miss front seven is going to get after him. And I think Jackson Dart is a man on a mission. And I think the offense is just going to be too dynamic, too many playmakers. And I like Ole Miss big here. I'm laying the points in a big way.
You know, ideally, you wouldn't have to run Quinshon Judkins a lot again this week, similar to the Mercer game. Keep his carries around 10 to 15 and win. I think that Ole Miss wins, but I think it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking going in, middle of the third quarter, late in the third quarter, and then Ole Miss scores and pulls away and wins by, 11 or 12. Let's say 32-19, 32-20. Something like that, 35-21. I just think that there. What's the total?
67.
God, that's big.
Let me see. Try to get a new number.
66 and a half.
66.5. Yeah.
And the line is 5, 7, 6.
I believe it's 7.
7.
7 and a half.
It feels like under is
you
the
can get
play
it at
here,
7.
right?
Yeah, it does to me. It feels like under is definitely the play.
I said my score prediction was 44-16.
Okay, that's it. What is that? 70, 60? Yeah.
Yeah, 61. Easy under.
Yeah, I think under's the play too. I think Ole Miss wins, and I'm not quite as bullish as Zach, but Ole Miss played Tulane a couple of years ago, and it was, and that was, I'm sure that Tulane team wasn't as good as this Tulane team, but the talent differential is a little bit too much for me to predict some kind of crazy, close game. I'll tell y'all this: if it's less than a touchdown, I don't think Ole Miss is winning. That it has that feeling that if it's close, it's going to be like a guide thing, and Tulane will win. But I think that we're looking at a 10 to 14 point game.
Yeah, it's Rebs all day here. I know our terrible defense gave up one play longer than 21 yards last week. So I understand there's reason for concern on that side of the ball. But on the other side of the ball, to me, this number is completely disrespectful. I'll be locking in Ole Miss team total over 34.5. There's no way that Tulane is holding this offense below 35 points. I'm assuming
we're said disrespectful.
Dude, we're going to get probably 10 possessions. You think that's about right? Even with the clock rolls, I'm assuming we're going to get 10 possessions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so do the math. We score on 50% of the 10 possessions. You feel good about that? I feel okay about that. I mean,
Oh yeah, I don't disagree with you.
That's right at the number. That's right on 35.
Yeah,
that's
I
all
agree.
I need.
I agree. That's
so now
right.
maybe we get 12 possessions with a turnover, long punt, whatever. Like, I don't think Tulane has the pieces on the back end to hold us below 35. I just don't. Now, I do think they're going to try to play keep away. I think they're going to go ground heavy, see if they can control clock and pace. But unfortunately for Tulane, there's no Tajay Spears on the roster, and Pratt's better really at airing the ball out. I mean, they live and die on the big play. And against USC and against South Alabama, they connected on those big plays. And when they can dial those up, they can be a really good football team.
Is Pratt going to play?
I think they're going to shoot him up and he's going to play, but I don't think he's anywhere close to 100% healthy. And so I think if we can get him off his mark, make him have to move out of the pocket a little bit, make him uncomfortable back there. And let's face it, just be honest about it. Let's touch him up a little bit, get a helmet on that knee every now and then. I don't want us to hurt the kid. I'm not suggesting anything like that. I'm just saying football's a physical game. If you make him start seeing shadows after he's been roughed up for a couple of series, I think that's all the better for Ole Miss. I think we're going to be successful in getting pressure on him. USA was successful in getting pressure on him. I think Tulane hangs for maybe a half. They've got a really good coach. They've got a decent veteran quarterback. It's going to be a good home field atmosphere for them, although the stadium only seats like 35,000, so it's not going to be the rowdiest environment we've ever played in. But I think they will hang for a half just because they're competently coached and they're good enough. But I think we run away with it late third and fourth. I think our depth and SEC talent just takes over. And I think it's something like 38-24 Rebs.
Yeah, that's right in line with me. Yep.
Some in this group, I think it was this group, said that this was going to be similar to the Georgia Tech game last year. I don't expect that. Georgia Tech was hapless last year. I think Tulane's going to be better than that. But go ahead, defend your position.
No, I didn't. I mean, I'm not going to defend it. I'm just saying, like, there's a possibility. I think that's a better chance than Ole Miss losing.
I hope you're right there. I mean, I think that's
But
possible.
I do think Tulane is. I think Tulane is very good. Like I think we're under. I say very good. They're very good for a G6 or non-Power 5 conference. I mean team, but about as good as you're going to play now.
I also think the question could be how many players at Tulane would play at Ole Miss, and it's probably not very many. I mean, I think that's harsh.
That's been my argument in a lot of these games for a long time. You don't even really recruit the same player.
Not to derail you, Nick, but is Pratt better than Spencer Sanders?
Yes.
I mean,
he's got legit NFL buzz.
I guess we'll see.
And I don't think he's turned it over 49 times in 42 games.
Well, if he's got legit NFL buzz, I mean, the last time we played a G5 quarterback with legit NFL buzz, we went to Memphis and lost. So it kind of makes me nervous. But I don't necessarily think they've got like the receivers on the outside, nor does he have the arm talent that Memphis quarterback did. But
I wonder what Paxton Lynch is doing right now.
Yeah, seriously, that guy.
Hell no. Oh, did you say CFL?
Yeah, CFL.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you said NFL. I was like, no.
There's Stampeders game tonight. He's starting in, I'm sure. I think like you guys are saying,
he's XFL. San Antonio
XFL.
Brahmas.
That's a tough scene. I think that Tulane will probably give Ole Miss a game for a half, and I just think that Ole Miss will be too good. The receivers are too strong. We were talking earlier, about whenever Ole Miss is able to get their full receiving core healthy. I mean, just how deep it's going to be, and obviously that's not just yet. But I mean, I really think we saw last week what those receivers can do. I think the offense could be too much. Hopefully, you don't have to lean too heavy on Judkins, like you said. But I mean, that offense is 10 possessions is probably low. Ole Miss is probably going to lean more towards 11 or 12, just because the offense runs pretty quickly. At that point, you just need 40 points. I think out of Ole Miss, I think it's pretty confident. I'm thinking something like 42-21. I do think it's going to be a little closer to that number. What was it, 67? The over-under?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
66 and a half, yeah.
Yeah, I do think it'll be a little closer to that. Like I said, 42-21. But I think Ole Miss is covering this game. I really, truly would be surprised if we didn't. I really wouldn't even think about taking Tulane until it got to around 10, honestly.
I should have mentioned last week too. I know it's week 1, don't want to overreact, but USA moved the ball against Tulane. They just put the ball on the carpet too many times and they shot themselves in the foot. If we play a clean game, a relatively clean game, I just think we're going to be much more efficient than South Alabama was, and I think our defense is better than theirs.
So our buddy Gray Hardison of Red Cup Rebellion, we were talking about it earlier today. It was a 7-point game with 7 minutes to play in the third, and then everything just went to shit for South Alabama. They had a turnover on downs, interception, and then a fumble.
Yep.
But not to be outdone with the silliness, Tulane was driving with about 10 minutes to go. They were up 17. They got to the USA 20, fumbled. USA recovered it, and then during the run back after the fumble recovery, they fumble it back to Tulane.
Yeah. And Tulane also scored on like a crazy kind of trick play, double toss pass bullshit thing. Those points count too. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying I don't expect stuff like that to happen against our defense, our secondary.
No. They hit on several long touchdown passes. I don't think Now, there could be a bust in coverage, but I think the secondary, which Pete Golding rebuilt quickly when he was hired, they went out in the portal and got some dudes. I just think that those guys, and we talked about it all offseason, these aren't like highly rated freshmen or highly rated redshirt freshmen. These are guys that have played a ton of football. They were all conference guys. I think Pete Golding is going to have this defense ready. And again, I think this is a national statement type game for Ole Miss where, like everybody, it's trendy to pick the green wave and Ole Miss better watch their ass down there in Uptown. I think, rat poison, all those jokes aside, I think Kiffin and that staff know that, and they're going to be more than prepared to put up. If they can put up a 50 burger, they're going to do it.
Yeah, I know sports writers like Tulane because of their jerseys and they're scrappy and New Orleans and all that stuff. But there's been nothing but one-way traffic on this number in the gambling market. It opened at Ole Miss -3.5, and it's going one direction and one direction only. I don't think that should be underestimated. Like the money coming in on Ole Miss -3 to take us through the 7, the key number of 7, all the way up to 8.5 at one point. Now I think there was some buying on Tulane at 8.5, but to get from 3.5 to 8, God, that's money. That's real money. That's not people betting $10 a pop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've got Austin's got 2 locks. Nick has 1. I have 1. Ben, you have none. So you kick it off.
Well, what have y'all picked?
So Nick locked in the under in Utah Baylor. I locked in Utah -7.5. Austin's got Colorado -3 and Ole Miss team total over 35.5.
34.5. 34.5. Yeah.
34.
Big difference.
You did that hook last week. Yeah.
I regret the error.
What is the Oklahoma line?
16.5.
Let's see.
Yeah,
I can get you 15.5.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna lay 15.5 Oklahoma over SMU.
Ooh.
The Sooners were good last week.
Yeah.
And now, mind you, I this is said in the context of they're going against Butch Jones, who's, fired before the end of the season. Hot take.
Dude was crying on the sidelines. He was
They're so bad.
Yeah,
They're so
73
bad.
points against an FBS team is a lot of points, though.
That is just so many points. And they didn't give up any, did they?
3-0, wasn't it?
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
shut out.
Gabriel's healthy. Look, it's just a good Oklahoma team, and they better get right because they're fixing to, in a year, it's gonna be a whole new ball game for them. And we've talked about that in the past. This is just not enough points. I don't get this at all. I think they win by 3 touchdowns, and so I'm gonna take Oklahoma.
I tell you, the only thing that can derail Oklahoma this year. Now it's only 1 game. Still need to see him in conference play. And I don't know if I buy this, but there have been rumblings around that program that their fans want Jackson Arnold to play.
I don't blame him. He's good.
Could this be another Oklahoma where they had Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams there at the same time?
Oh God, I hope so.
Because they love Jackson Arnold, and for good reason. He's a stud. He's a 5-star. But yeah, Dylan Gabriel looked all world last week against a hapless Arkansas State team. But yeah, I don't know if maybe year 2 is
I know Dylan Gabriel is like not a Gabriel's not a physically opposing guy, but how old is he? Like 30? And
he's got to be at least 24
until he starts. Yeah, he's actually just 22. Wow.
Oh, okay.
It seems like he's been playing college football my entire life, but anyway, didn't mean to interrupt you, Zach.
No, yeah, no. I was pretty critical of Venables last year. They were bad. But the offense might be good enough to where it won't matter. Because he's got to rebuild that defense there because they didn't play defense with Lincoln Riley there. So all right, Nick, what you got?
Okay, so let me pull this back up. I'm going this is a little bit of a reaction based off last week. I think Illinois, they're going to Kansas. This is what the border war here, separated by, I guess, Missouri. But Illinois' underrated after what they did last week. Struggled a little bit with Toledo. Ended up getting the win. They're catching 3.5 points at Kansas, and I just don't really see. Or I guess can you give me 3.5? I'm seeing 3 actually.
Let's see.
Yeah, while you're looking for that, so I mean, if I could get 3.5, that'd be great. Even if I have to just get 3, that's fine. I just think we're
I can get you
overrating
3.5.
Kansas. Yeah, I think we're overrating Kansas a little bit based off what we saw from a few games last year. I don't quite think they're there, and I think that Bielema is still a pretty good coach. I just think that's what it is. Toledo, pretty good MAC team, and I think that we're probably going to see that throughout the rest of the year. That's probably a team that goes unbeaten in the MAC. I really think that. I mean, that's a good football team. And they're well coached as well. So I think we're going to see, a bounce back from Illinois. Just have to keep it within 3 of Kansas. I mean, like repeat that sentence again. A team has to keep it within 3 of Kansas football.
Kansas is kind of scrappy though.
Sure, but I just think
done a great job. So you're gonna believe in Luke Altmaier and the Illini?
Hey, he did the trick last week.
That's true.
I think he led Illinois in rushing too. Which what the fuck? What is going on? Yeah,
game-winning drive. He did orchestrate that. I'll give him credit.
I mean, truthfully, I think that's his level. Like, I think we probably get on him because like he wasn't some stud at Ole Miss, but like that's his level. He's a pretty good college or pretty decent college quarterback, and going to somewhere like Illinois and beating someone like Kansas, like that's kind of what he would be good enough for. He probably take Ole Miss and beat Tulane this week, and then probably lose to Alabama. Like that's about his level.
I think he's particularly well suited for an offense like Illinois, where he's kind of a game manager too. Bert's not going to ask him to do a ton in this offense. He's not going to be taking vertical shots every other play, although he did bail them out with a pretty impressive vertical shot late last week. But you get my point. Bert likes the tight end game and dumps to running backs out of the backfield, and Altmaier's perfectly fine for that.
Yeah, the problem on this game, by the way, is Altmaier over under 200.5 passing yards. So if you want like an idea of what they're expecting out of him against a team like Kansas, and also if you're kind of expecting a lower score game, which it appears they are, then why would I not go ahead and take the 3 points?
Yeah. All right, just so we're clear, no one has taken any action on Oregon, Texas Tech, right?
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
I'm gonna try it again. I went against the grain last week, but can't fail 2 weeks in a row, right? I'm gonna take Oregon -6. I think they are good enough to win by 1 score. Now, will it be tight? Sure. Oregon's got the personnel for it to be tight and then to have a big play, boom, easy win by 8, 9 points, whatever. I don't know. It could be a weird week where Texas Tech might let Wyoming beat them twice. They're going to be reeling after that one. I know it's back home. They'll be fired up, but I think Oregon is actually not getting enough attention in the Pac-12. I know everybody's talking about Washington. Everybody's talking about SC. Everybody's talking about DJ at Oregon State. Utah gets their flowers. I think Oregon's kind of over there thinking, hey, we're over here too. Our quarterback's got billboards in Times Square and whatnot. And we know that they're going to try to score points as much as possible. So if they can make a statement in a non-conference road game, I think they're going to. But 6, come on, you can give me a score, Bo Nix. So I'm going with the Ducks here. Plus, I saw the uniforms, and I mean, come on.
I think that's the only way to play it.
I've got a lock.
Go ahead, Ben.
Has anybody touched the Iowa State game yet?
No.
What can you get me in the total?
Man, Nick is going to get you for copyright infringement on this dumpster ass game that you're getting involved in here.
I did see that like Ron DeSantis and a bunch of other people are joining Donald Trump at the game.
It's perfect.
And somebody said that Kirk Ferentz will still be the most conservative person in the building.
36 and a half, by the way, Ben.
Oh my
36 and a half. That's a
I'm going to take the under.
that's a Chicago Bears line, man.
Look, Iowa State. We all know what Iowa is, right? And they've got Cade McNamara at quarterback. It doesn't really matter. They beat Utah State, or Iowa beat Utah State last week, 24-14. Utah State is terrible, and but they just don't score points on anybody. And this goes back. I know Austin's point about their OC gets a bonus if he hits a certain number of points.
No, he doesn't get fired.
Yeah, he's got to do it to keep his job.
The bonus is that
what
he's
a weird
employed.
What a weird rule.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not as if Iowa State is some like juggernaut either. Their quarterback threw the ball. Guess how many passes he threw last week against Northern Iowa? Without looking, how many passes did Iowa State throw last week against Northern Iowa?
7.
7. Oh man, yeah, 7. 9.
13.
13.
In college football, they threw 13 passes.
Yeah, but how many did he complete?
10.
Oh, pretty efficient.
Who is their
super
quarterback?
efficient.
A freshman named Rocco Becht.
Oh,
I
of
remember
course.
him.
Remember
Yeah,
him.
I think we should.
course.
It's appropriate to mention on this podcast that their starting quarterback is not playing because he was embroiled in a gambling scandal.
That's right.
I forget this is the Gamble Bowl.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever considered the fact that like Iowa and Iowa State just got screwed on this because their attorney general cared? Like if our attorney general cared and wasn't like doing whatever our attorney general's doing, we would probably also be at like 30 starters. They were popping dudes for like $7 bets on the horse races, like the dumbest things. One guy got popped for like it was like one of us type bets. He got popped for 210 bets, totaling $2,000 or something like that. Like he was averaging like a little over $8 a bet.
I mean, that's as stupid as back in the day when Rick Neuheisel got in trouble for a March Madness pool.
Seriously, that's the level.
Like, who cares?
Imagine he'd average 25 points a game and then scoring 24 against Utah State.
Dude,
Yeah, and they had 14 on the
-1.
first 2 drives.
Oh yeah, they came out clicking.
Yeah, on fire.
The first
they
Ben, real
average
quick.
less than 3 yards per carry against Utah State.
That's tough scene.
Ben, did you see the stat for the first drive?
What was it?
The first time that Iowa
I did see that.
Opening touchdown drive with a passing touchdown since 1991.
I mean, if it went back to 91, I'm surprised it wasn't like the first one ever. Because it wasn't like teams in 91 were chucking the ball around all the place. It was probably like 1991 and the only other time was like 1977 or something.
I just don't understand how they don't even have the athletes to like get a breakaway every now and then. Right. Just a busted play.
Somebody falls down.
Like a screen.
All their fastest players play defense. They have like corners go to the NFL. It seems like every other year.
All the time. Yeah, offensive linemen are going to the NFL. I mean,
their best athletes are wrestlers, so that's the problem.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Put that guy in the
their best
slot.
athletes played football.
You know that touchdown they threw in 91 on an opening drive was to a fullback.
Oh, for sure. With some Polish last name too, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, some dude with a neck roll. I respect the sicko-ness here, Ben.
You know, when you're at the top, you got to start mixing it up.
Don't want to get bored.
The top of the trash heap.
All right. If no one else has one, I got one I can fire off real quick for my third.
Shoot.
Because God, I picked all favorites last week and went over, and I've already got 2 favorites here. I'm gonna ride the hot hand, and I'm gonna go with my boy Gary Joe and the Texas State Bobcats to cover 14 against UTSA. Man, dude, Texas State, they're fun as hell. They took
too many points.
Took it to Baylor. Yeah, too many points. I think this is gonna be an awesome game at 2:30 because UTSA is legit. I love what the Roadrunners do. I love their quarterback, whose name has escaped me right now.
Frank Harris.
Frank Harris. He wears 0. He's a stud. And
Franco Harris.
I love what Gary Joe and the Bobcats do offensively as well. This is going to be a fun one. And yeah, like Austin said, too many points, and I can get it at 14. I think they definitely cover that.
When you have an offense like that, like 14 points, the back door is always open for that Texas State offense. And fun fact, by the way, Texas State's head coach played high school football for UTSA's head coach.
Ooh,
That's actually pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
So, you wouldn't think that even if UTSA were capable of running it up, and I don't think they are, you wouldn't think he'd be inclined to like pile it on his boy, right? Like, surely not.
Yeah, and this one might just be a who has the ball last.
Yeah, I don't think like I said, I don't think they can pile it on because I think Texas State is going to be able to score against basically anybody in that level, in that conference. So, look, Texas State may go outright again here.
They might, yeah. And UTSA lost to a just awful Houston team last week.
Mhm.
So yeah,
It's got to be deflating too for UTSA. It's a tough loss. They put a lot of stock in that game. Opener, sort of a rivalry or what they want to be a rivalry, and now they have to come home, lick their wounds, and play lowly Texas State.
I really want them to play well in this one in the next next week as well, because September 23rd they're going to Knoxville.
Yeah.
Better be careful.
Texas State, they're good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I refuse to call him the head coach is GJ Kinney. I refuse to call him. I'm just going to call him Gary Joe. I will not use the initials.
Don't church it up, Gary Joe.
Yeah.
So I've got my third, and I'm going to Boca Raton, and we're going to lay 3.5 with Florida Atlantic against the Ohio Bobcats.
Yeah, it's good bet. It's a good pick.
I think Ohio's quarterback, who's the reigning MAC Player of the Year, is out. Curtis Rourke.
They said he's probably going to play, but he's definitely going to be banged up. I mean, he's still hurt.
Well, yeah, or he's not 100%.
No.
But Casey Thompson's awesome, and Tom Herman is good. Not to do this whole Arkansas State to Auburn type deal, but FAU to Ole Miss could become a thing if Lane Kiffin were to jump ship down the road. Tom Herman's a good coach. He got poor treatment at Texas. That was just not a fit, but he can coach, and Casey Thompson can play. When we're talking about a guy, this is a Power 5 quarterback playing against at FAU with presumably better talent than what Ohio has at home in that heat. So I'm gonna lay 3.5.
So I think Ohio is going to be missing their 2 stud wide receivers and potentially a tight end as well. Ohio's good for the MAC, but I mean, they're not. If you're missing 3 players plus you have a banged up quarterback, this is a great bet. I think it's also going to be the last week they're going to be able to get FAU at a discount. I think the market is going to adjust at some point, and people are going to remember that Herman's down there with the Power 5 transfer at quarterback. I think this is the last time to buy low on FAU. For the rest of the year, the number is going to be probably not worth betting into, but at 3.5, I love this pick.
Yeah. And like Ben said, Casey Thompson, former Texas quarterback, but they've also got some dudes at the skill positions. Larry McCammon III had Power 5 offers. He played at Hoover. He's a good back. And then they've got a nice little 1-2-3 punch with Tony Johnson, Jaquan Burton, and LeJontay Wester. They've got some receivers that can go get it. So I love this. And yeah, people are going to figure out FAU, and these lines are not going to be as kind to us the rest of the year.
No, this is the last shot. All right, I've got my third. What can you give me on Georgia Southern against UAB? I'd like a
7.5.
Oh,
7. I can give you 7.
Give me a 7 flat then. Let's lay 7 with Georgia Southern. I think UAB made the worst offseason coaching hire this year.
You don't think Dilfer's like the next great coach?
I think he's bad. And I think he knows his football team is bad, as evidenced by the fact that last week against North Carolina A&T, UAB went on an 11-play, 99-yard drive, already up 28-6. This is 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They went on a 99-yard drive with their starters in the game and scored a
Good God.
touchdown to cover the number. You know who does that?
Oh,
You know who does that? A coach who knows he's not going to cover any more numbers that year. That's who does that. I think UAB is bad. This is not your big brother's UAB football team. Dilfer's not a good coach. He does not have a good roster. Georgia Southern is sneaky good. They always play well at home too, by the way. A touchdown I think is pretty light here. I think this could get ugly, like 17, 21-point win for Georgia Southern. So get after that ass, as they say at Georgia Southern. Let's lay the 7.
Did anybody go from like a most likable dude to most unlikable dude from Bill Clark to Trent Dilfer?
Man, yeah, you're right. That
'Cause,
was
yeah,
a steep move.
It's hard to find compliments about Trent Dilfer around Nashville. I'll just say that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
can believe
he's
that.
in over his head here. Like he's not qualified to be a head coach. He basically got this position based on star power. Certainly not
Well,
because he was qualified.
what was he doing? He was a high school coach
High school
before
head,
this.
yeah, high school
He
coach.
was at Lipscomb Academy here in Nashville,
That seems like a bit. I mean,
which
and I'm not.
which he conveniently got the UAB job and bolted right when they moved up a division.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I feel like somewhere like Lipscomb. I don't know anything about the TSSA, but I feel like they're just recruiting better players a lot of times. So it's not necessarily about like being a really excellent. It's not like he was down there playing 8-man ball and just like, scheming things up and get with nobodies. I mean, he's bringing in transfers from George County. I know the guy went back and stuff, but like they're just bringing in really good players. So that's an odd jump, and you don't see many guys go from high school to like head coach of a G5 team and have a ton of success.
Yeah,
Just smells on, I guess, notwithstanding.
That's a good pick, Austin.
All right, I've got
And
my
it's in
last one here.
Statesboro too. You don't march into Statesboro and get it done.
Nobody does. Nobody does. I got my last one here. I really, really, really considered taking Mississippi State minus 9.5 because I think they're going to beat the brakes off of Arizona. I do think the Arizona team is a little bit better, but I think there's just a talent discrepancy. I'm a low level Pac-12 team and a low level SEC team. There's just a large talent difference. But I decided against it mostly because I couldn't do that. Like my heart couldn't take betting on Mississippi State. So I'm going to take under.
You don't think Jet Johnson is going to just wreak havoc all day?
Yeah, no, he's going to be all TFLs, sacks, all over the place. But again, like I said, I couldn't do it. So I'm going to take under 56.5, Alabama, Texas. I think we kind of mentioned it earlier when we were talking about what Alabama's going to do. They're kind of back to that old school smash mouth. They probably got the best offensive line in the country. They're going to slow the game down a little bit. And this could go one of two ways. Either I am very correct and Alabama wins like 31-14, and it's really not all that close, and it's pretty low scoring affair, and it really doesn't get all that close. Or it's like the Tennessee Alabama game last year, played in the 40s or what was it, the 50s up in Knoxville, and they just blow through this at halftime. It's really only going one way or the other. I just think it's going the first way. I think that the defense of Alabama is pretty good, and I think that they are going to do everything in their power not to have to run, Jalen Milroe 50 times and really open up that offense and have a high scoring game like they did last year in Knoxville. I think this is going to be low scoring. I think Bama's playing at best in the low 30s, and I don't think Texas is breaking the mid 20s.
All right, we got our 12 locks in there. We're bouncing back. We got to. Last week was tough. We'll be fine. I like this board here. And look, some sneaky good games for week 2 as well. I think this is going to be
a much better week. Much better week than last week.
Yeah, and you got a bunch piled in early in the day too. You got a lot of interesting ones at 11. You got some fun ones at 2:30. Obviously, Ole Miss is at 2:30 as well. So get those second and third TVs out to pay attention to some of the other ones. Everybody's got to have a TV locked in on El Assico at 2:30 on Fox. But yeah, I think this is a fun slate. So that is going to do it for Hit That Line. We appreciate Home Field Apparel, College Corner, and the rest of the sponsors that bring this show to you. And as always, we appreciate Austin, Ben, and Nick for joining us and giving us their expert picks for week 2 of college football. We will be back next week talking week 3. Until then, we out.